The world of Aquamu was born from the sea, its very soul tied to the restless waves. The salty air was its breath, the ocean's roar its heartbeat. For generations, the people had lived by the ocean's grace, their fates tied to the pull of the tides and the bounty beneath the waves. Every sound in Aquamu carried the ocean's song, from the hush of the retreating tide to the thunder of the waves breaking against the shore. Among them lived Kwasi, a boy standing on the edge of manhood, caught between tradition and a hunger for the unknown. He was the apprentice of Nana Kojo, his grandfather, the village's master storyteller, keeper of legends older than the oldest tree. While other boys dreamed of sailing the vast ocean to catch its treasures, Kwasi's heart was drawn to the secrets that lay far below the surface. The sea spoke to Kwasi in whispers, not of fish or trade, but of forgotten kingdoms and shadows that moved in the deep. Kwasi's feet belonged to the warm sands of Aquamu, but his mind drifted with the currents, searching for the world beneath the waves. Nana Kojo told him that the ocean remembered everything. Every storm, every voyage, every soul it had claimed. And so Kwasi waited, knowing that one day the sea would reveal its greatest story, and he would be the one to tell it. Every evening, as the sun sank below the horizon, Nana Kojo would take his place on a worn wooden stool, his presence commanding the village square. The sky blazed in fiery hues of orange and purple, the ocean shimmering beneath it like molten gold. His voice rumbled low, each word carrying the weight of 1,000 years of stories and wisdom. He told of Anance the spider, the cunning trickster whose web could snare both kings and spirits. His stories wandered into the forests, where unseen spirits moved between the shadows and moonlight. Then he spoke of Mami Wada, the mother of the waters, a being of power and beauty, feared and revered by all. Her beauty was unmatched, her skin like polished ebony, her hair like spun gold, her gaze both enchanting and dangerous. Mami Wada could bless a fisherman with endless fortune, or summon a storm fierce enough to swallow ships whole. The old ones warned Kwasi never to sail beyond the coral reef, the shimmering wall that guarded the village from the deep. The Mami Wada's domain is for spirits, not for men, Nana Kojo would say, his eyes shadowed with a warning as old as the sea itself. But Kwasi's curiosity was a restless current, pulling him away from the safety of the shore and into the embrace of the unknown. An ache grew in his heart, a yearning for something more than tales told by firelight. He wanted to see the magic with his own eyes. One afternoon, as the tide was low and fishing boats drifted home, Kwasi slipped quietly away from the village. He found a small, battered canoe, its wood worn smooth by years of salt and sun, and pushed it into the shallows. Kwasi paddled with fierce strokes, driven by defiance and wonder, the village growing smaller behind him. He reached the jagged edge of the coral reef, the shimmering, living wall that marked the point of no return. Beyond the reef, the water shifted to a deeper, more profound blue, a shade he had only ever seen in dreams. Here, the sea was calm, unnaturally calm, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The air was heavy, thick with silent expectation, as though something unseen waited just beneath the surface. Kwasi had crossed into a realm that belonged not to men, but to spirits. And somewhere in the deep, something new he had arrived. Kwasi drifted for what felt like an eternity, the sun burning into his back as the canoe rocked him in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. The heat pressed down on him, heavy and unrelenting, the ocean stretching endlessly in every direction. The soft rocking of the canoe was a lullaby, coaxing him into a dangerous calm. A pang of fear began to seep into his heart, urging him to turn back toward the safety of the shore. Then he saw it, a ripple in the distance, breaking the perfect stillness of the sea. It wasn't the playful splash of a dolphin or the breach of a whale. This was something different. It moved in a rhythm, shimmering like molten silver beneath the water's surface. His heart pounded like a frantic drum as he paddled closer, unable to resist the pull of the unknown. The shimmer took shape, a figure emerging from the depths, half woman, half fish. She rose from the water like a dream given flesh, her beauty otherworldly, her gaze fixed upon him. She was more beautiful than any story could capture. a vision that defied the boundaries of legend. Her eyes, vast and luminous, glowed with the deep green of sea moss clinging to hidden rocks. Her hair was not spun gold as the tales claimed, but silver-blue dreadlocks drifting like a halo of stars and water. Her tail shimmered like living jewels, shifting from sapphire to emerald with every graceful flick. But it was in her eyes that Kwasi saw the truth, a sorrow as deep and endless as the ocean itself. Boy in small canoe gazing forward in awe, wooden paddle floating just out of reach on the water, bright sunlight, vivid detail. He reached for it, and the movement startled her. She vanished beneath the waves in soundless grace. He waited, holding his breath, the rippling surface the only sign she had ever been there. With a heavy sigh, he retrieved his paddle and began the long journey back to shore. Her face, luminous and sad, was etched forever in his mind, a memory he would never let go. Kwasi returned to the village, his secret a heavy stone in his chest, one he dared not share. Nana Kojo saw the change. Kwasi's stories now spoke of the deep blue, of colors unseen, and of a sorrow without a name. Days later, his yearning grew too great. He returned to the reef, no longer a reckless boy, but a man with quiet determination. He waited for hours, the sun beginning its descent, his hope fading with the light. Then, a ripple, and her head broke the surface. This time, she did not flee. Suddenly, a voice like seashell chimes echoed in his mind. "You are not afraid." She told him, "I am not Mami Wada. My name is Ajoa. I am of the water people, the Asuo." They met in secret, when the sun was gentle and the fishermen were far from shore. He told her of Akwamu, the markets, the drumming, the dancing, the stories of his people. She told him of coral cities, kelp forests, and the wonders of the deep. But when she spoke of her home, a shadow passed through her gaze, as if hiding a sorrow too heavy to share. "Our city is dying," Ajoa whispered, her voice carrying the weight of oceans. "The coral is losing its color, the fish are sick. A darkness is spreading, a poison from your world." Kwasi felt a terrible chill. He spoke of empty fishing nets, of violent storms that came without warning, of a land as sick as the sea. "It is not anger," Ajoa said softly. "It is a sickness. Our worlds are tied together. What harms one harms the other." Their secret meetings turned into a desperate quest for answers. Kwasi began to search the old stories, not for wonder, but for truth. He found a pattern, a sacred object, a lost artifact whispered of in countless tales, linking the fate of the land and the sea. Kwasi began to weave the blight into his tales, embedding clues for those who could hear them, hoping someone might understand. "Your stories have a new weight to them," Nana Kojo said. "They speak of things you have not yet seen." Kofi, Kwasi's rival, followed him to the shore. Suspicion burned in his eyes as he watched from the shadows. He saw it, the ripple, the shimmer, the figure of legend speaking with his rival. His heart raced, not with wonder, but with greed. In Kofi's mind, she was not a friend, but a tool, a way to shame Kwasi, and claim the title of master storyteller for himself. Kofi returned from the shore, his eyes glinting with malice hidden beneath a mask of concern. Bowing slightly, he spoke to Nana Kojo, his voice smooth yet dripping with deceit. "Master, I fear for your grandson. Kwasi has been speaking with the spirit of the sea, the Mami Wada herself. He tempts the god's wrath with his folly." Nana Kojo's ancient gaze met Kofi's. In his eyes, wisdom shimmered like still water under moonlight. "Kwasi's spirit is restless," he said softly, "but his heart is pure. I will speak to him." When Kwasi returned from the shore, his grandfather was waiting. The air between them was heavy with unspoken truths. "The sea holds many secrets," Nana Kojo began, "but some are too heavy for one person to carry alone." Kwasi's heart sank. He confessed it all, the beautiful Ajoa, the dying coral city, the spreading blight, and the promise they had made to save their worlds. Nana Kojo's voice dropped to a whisper. "There is a legend of the Asuo Kit, the sacred drum of the water people. It held the balance of the ocean, until greed stole it away, bringing the blight. The drum was taken by a fisherman blinded by greed. His power, meant for all, became a weapon of discord. The seas began to sicken, and life beneath the waves waned. The drum, Nana Kojo said gravely, is now in the hands of Kofi's family. Kwasi's blood ran cold. He finally understood Kofi's hostility. It was born from greed and possession. That evening, Ajoa's eyes shimmered with worry. The sickness is growing, she thought to him. The coral turns to dust, and the great sea serpents stir. Kwasi told her everything, the drum's history, Kofi's family, and its corrupted power. Together, they vowed to retrieve it before the sea was lost forever. The next day, Kwasi stood before the council, his voice carrying the weight of truth. He spoke not of spirits, but of a friend named Ajoa and the shared fate of their worlds. His words wove a tapestry of urgency and hope. The council chamber fell silent as Kofi leapt to his feet, his face twisted with outrage. "He speaks of delusions," he cried. "He communes with spirits, and now he accuses my family of sin. This is dangerous madness." But Nana Kojo, the revered master storyteller, rose to his feet. His voice, aged yet powerful, rang across the chamber. "My son speaks the truth. Stories are not just tales, they are lessons. And the lesson of the Asuakit has been lost for too long." The council, swayed by the wisdom of their oldest elder, agreed to a test. They would send a delegation to Kofi's home to retrieve the sacred drum. Seeing he was losing and fearing the consequences, Kofi finally relented. With reluctance, he led them to his home. Inside a hidden room, beneath a heavy cloth, they uncovered the drum. Beautifully carved from dark wood, smelling of salt and ancient depths, but covered with a film of slime. They carried the drum to the shore. The sea lay poisoned, a dark, oily sheen coating its surface, and the stench of decay filling the air. Kwasi waded into the water, carrying the drum carefully. Ajoa waited, her face radiant with hope in the darkened sea. Their hands met, one human, one of the sea. A shock of warmth pulsed through them as the drum began to hum, resonating deep within the land and the water. With a cry, Ajoa dove beneath the waves. The villagers gasped as the oily sheen dissolved, colors of blue and green flooding back, and the stench replaced by the salty scent of life. When Ajoa returned, the drum gleamed with light. Kwasi, now a true master storyteller, sat on his grandfather's stool, his words carrying the rhythm of the waves and the memory of a secret shared between land and sea. The peace of Aquamu was broken. The once bountiful sea grew eerily quiet, its waves muted and its gulls silenced. The fishermen's nets, once overflowing, now returned empty, heavy only with dread. Sensing a deeper darkness, Kwasi paddled out to meet Ajoa. Her face carried sorrow beyond words, the sorrow of the ocean itself. Ajoa revealed the truth. The abyssal heart had awakened. It was no myth, but an ancient void feeding on light, sound, and life itself. Back in Aquamu, the council gathered. Even Kofi, humbled by past mistakes, confessed his grandfather's words. The abyssal heart could only be defeated with pure light and sound. Kwasi and Ajoa realized the answer lay in the moonstone of Mami Wada and the sacred Asuakit drum, used not for greed, but for harmony and life. Together, they descended into the silent abyss. The deeper they went, the darker and colder the waters became, their courage tested by the stillness of the void. They passed through the coral city, now a ghost town. Once vibrant structures stood lifeless, the Asua people trembling in the shadows of the abyss. Guarded by ancient sea serpents, the moonstone awaited. When Ajoa touched it, silver light burst forth, pushing back the void, but only for a moment. Finally, they confronted it, the abyssal heart. Not beast nor demon, but a sphere of pure nothingness, hungering endlessly for life. Ajoa raised the moonstone high, its silver light blazing. Kwasi struck the Asuakit, his rhythm no longer of greed but of life itself, the heartbeat of sun, wave, and laughter. Together, land and sea fought the void. The forces of light and sound surged together, clashing against the void. The abyssal heart writhed, its formless shadow quivering in pain. The silence shattered, replaced by the deep, rhythmic pulse of the sacred drum, echoing life back into the waters. The darkness unraveled slowly, shrinking into itself, as if fleeing from the harmony that bound land and sea together. The sea bloomed with color, brilliant blues, shimmering greens, and radiant corals glowing with renewed life. From the deepest trenches rose a symphony, the whale songs, the hum of coral, and the joyous chorus of the Asua. Exhausted but victorious, Kwasi and Ajoa surfaced, their bond unbroken, their triumph shared. The people of Aquamu gathered on the shore, their cheers echoing across the sea as they welcomed their heroes. Kofi stepped forward, a tear glistening in his eye. "Your stories were not just stories, my friend," he said. The bond between land and sea was no longer a secret, but a living pact, woven with trust and eternal vigilance. Kwasi's tales became more than words. They were a harmony of two worlds, forever entwined in rhythm and song. The years that followed were golden. The people of Aquamu and the Asua lived as one, united by wisdom and respect. The sea fed the land, and the land honored the sea. Kwasi was no longer just a storyteller. He was the bridge, the voice of the land and the sea, the keeper of their harmony, honored by both worlds. But peace never lasts forever. Rumors drifted across the waves, of ships of iron and smoke, of pale-skinned strangers hungry for riches beyond imagination. A scout boat returned, trembling. They spoke of a sea monster of iron, anchored at their bay, its crew searching for the mother's tear. Kwasi paddled to Ajoa. She was waiting, her eyes filled with sorrow. "They are here," her voice whispered through the tide. "My people fear what your kind may bring." The newcomers were led by Elias, a captain who saw no people, only treasures, myths, and riches waiting to be plundered. Kwasi knew they could not fight iron with spears. This battle was not of war, but of truth. He would wield his greatest gift, a story strong enough to pierce greed. Kofi, now an elder, placed a carved drum into Kwasi's hands. "The drum has a new rhythm," he said. "Go and teach them to listen." As Kwasi was ferried towards the iron ship, his people gathered on the shore. Their eyes carried both fear and hope, the fate of two worlds resting on a story. He looked at the waves, feeling Ajoa's presence within them, a silent promise. The fate of land and sea would now be told, not in battle but in story.